Hi everyone, it's Rman here, and today in this FEH Hall of Forms video, I will talk about what skills you may want to get in this Hall of Forms and analyze the pros and cons for each build. And then I will talk about each unit one by one and start with their private weapon or special effects. And the timestamps are included in this video description. So here are the recommended builds for each unit that you may want to get in this Hall of Forms. So first, let's talk about Legendary Female Alear. Legendary Female Alear has a private weapon and a private special. She has a private weapon, Dragon's Fist, which has Slaying, Brave Attacks, Omni +5 during combat, and Omni minus maximum of 10 for foes during combat. It also has 40% pierceable DR and the Hexblade effect. And for her private special, Dragon Blast, it boosts damage based on 50% of her speed and has 40% unpierceable DR. It also gives full piercing if she is on a team with her support partner. The support partner gets full piercing when their special triggers as well. So her private weapon is actually very outdated, and because it has 0 true damage and 0 flat DR. However, her private special Dragon Blast is still quite good with the 40% unpierceable DR, and it also gets full piercing when special triggers. However, you need to have Legendary Female Alear's support partner on your team if you want to get the full piercing, and therefore she can actually keep using her private special, but her private weapon needs a refine as soon as possible. So for Legendary Female Alear, she has 3 builds. They are the Melee Nuke build, the Omnitank build, and the Maximum Arena Scoring build. So I recommend getting the Maximum Arena Scoring build because Legendary Female Alear is a legendary hero, and as a legendary hero, her main game mode is going to be Arena, and you most likely will not use her in other game modes because her performance is not particularly outstanding, and she also doesn't have any crazy unique features that make her stand out. And unless she is your favorite unit, you will not be using her outside of Arena. Therefore, you would most likely want to maximize her Arena score to use her effectively in Arena, and I recommend you to get the maximum scoring Arena build. So for the maximum scoring Arena build, you would want to keep her private weapon and get the assist skill Reposition Gate, as it is the rarest high score. It is the rarest and the highest scoring assist skill right now. And for her special, you should definitely get Dragon Flame because just to maximize her forma value. And the Dragon Flame special is a 4 cooldown special, and it boosts damage based on 80% of her defense, and it also heals 40% of her max HP when the special triggers, and also gets 40% unpierceable DR if she meets the defense check. And this special boosts a bit more damage and heals, but it also has 1 extra cooldown than her private special Dragon Blast, and also gives no piercing. So maybe this Dragon Flame special is actually a little worse than her private special, but you mainly want to grab the Dragon Flame special to maximize your Forma Soul value, as this special is a rare 500 SP special. So continuing the Arena build, for the A skill, I recommend you to get Slice with Sparrow, mainly because to get the 5 true damage. Because Legendary Female Alear does not have any true damage in her base kit, and the only way you can get some true damage in her Arena build is from the A skill. So I recommend you to just get Slice with Sparrow to get the 5 true damage. And for the B skill, if you're going for the highest scoring Arena build, you must get High Dragon Wall because it is the only existing 400 SP B skill for dragons, and you must use it in order to maximize her Arena score, because skills that cost higher SP scores higher in Arena. So, well, the High Dragon Wall skill does not give any true damage and does not give any flat DR, so it is actually a very bad skill in this modern meta, but it is still the highest scoring skill in Arena right now, so you are forced to use it. You are forced to use it actually if you are going for the highest score. So for the C skill, you should definitely get Barricade, because Barricade helps you stop foes from warping into spaces near you. Especially, it slightly overlaps with the High Dragon Wall skill, because the High Dragon Wall skill also stops range 2 foes from warping into spaces within 4 spaces of legendary female Alear, but the Barricade skill also stops range 1 foes from warping close to legendary female Alear, so that doesn't ov- that doesn't overlap. So I still think Barricade is a good skill, and mainly legendary female Alear cannot do damage with this build. She will only be a score bot, and therefore you should try and get some supportive effects out of it, like the warp blocking effects. So I recommend you to get Barricade. And for this build, she gets a total of 5 true damage and 0 flat DR, which is actually very bad, terrible even, but it is necessary for her to reach. Sorry, it is necessary for her to reach the highest score in Arena, because she needs the High Dragon Wall skill, and most true damage or flat DR comes from the B skill and also comes from the weapon. So in order to get the maximum score, she has to use her private weapon, and she also needs to use a 0 true damage and 0 flat DR B skill High Dragon Wall. So for your reference, this build scores 768 BST, which is the same as an unblessed max scoring Marnie. And until she gets a good refine, legendary female Alear will mainly be used as a warp stopping arena score bot unit with this build, as she has near 0 true damage and actually 0 flat DR, and she also gives very little support to her allies. And then moving on to the Melee Nuke build. For the Melee Nuke build, legendary female Alear needs to get the speed refined Dragon Bloom Plus, because the Dragon Bloom Plus weapon gives her much needed true damage. It gives true damage based on 15% of her speed, and it is much better than the 0 true damage from her weapon. You do lose the brave attacks, remember, but you can always just get the brave attacks from the Emblem Erica ring. So it's a small price to pay for some much needed true damage. And she also gets some pierceable DR in this Dragon Bloom Plus weapon. And for her assist skill, you will still want to get Reposition Gate, and also get the Dragon Flame special again to maximize her format value. And for the A skill, you can choose between Slice with Sparrow for the 5 true damage, or Attack Speed Excel for the maximum of 12 flat DR when she initiates combat. And then for the B skill, you must get Edge Scales, because the Edge Scale skills gives her some much needed true damage based on 15% of foe's attack, and also gives 10 flat DR on foe's first attack. And it also gives no follow-up and 10 frozen effect on foe, which are all pretty good, but you mainly want to get for the 10 flat DR, get the skill for the 10 flat DR and the much needed true damage. And then for the C skill, you would definitely want to get Brutal Tempest, because it gives legendary female Alear a lot of Canto, and it also gives her movement +1, which helps legendary female Alear nuke more consistently, as she can move more spaces. And you may consider getting Fatal Smoke 4 for No Miracle or even other skills, but Brutal Tempest gives legendary female Alear 1 extra movement and just a lot of Canto. Canto distance +1 max 4 is a lot of spaces, and which are both amazing tools to helping her function as a good melee nuke, if not necessary tools in this crazy Canto and mobility meta. So at maximum stats, legendary female Alear gets a total of about 24 true damage and 10 flat DR for this recommended melee nuke build, which is good, but her true damage is still not high enough, considering she does not have brave attacks nor potent attacks if you don't equip Emblem Erica ring, of course. And with the attack speed finish free Sacred Seal, which gives 5 true damage, she can get up to a total of 29 true damage. But remember that she sacrificed her brave attacks from her private weapon in exchange for about 10 to 9 true damage. So if you want to use this build, remember to equip Emblem Erica Ring so that she can nuke more foes. And if at base stats, she only gets about 22 true damage without the attack speed finish free Sacred Seal, which is actually still quite good. However, it would be better if she can use her private weapon and get brave attacks without using Emblem Erica Ring and while maintaining similar amounts of true damage. So I hope that her future refine will give her even more true damage. So for her Omnitank build, you will want to get the Speed Refined Dragonstone Plus, and because the Dragonstone Plus weapon gives her flat DR, which is much needed to tank modern enemies, and the flat DR is based on 20% of her speed, which is good. And it also gives the no follow-up and Hexblade effect. And for the A skill, you would definitely want to get Distant Bonus Doubler because it is the only A skill that gives bonus distant counter and some extra effects, right, that are available in this Hall of Forms now. You can consider giving Legendary Female Alear the distant AD form skill from Legendary Black Knight, but I doubt that you will want to sacrifice a Legendary Black Knight just to build your Legendary Female Alear. So I think because the Legendary Black Knight is just so much more valuable, and you would not want to fodder the Black Knight just for the A attack defense form skill, which only gives distant counter and maybe some attack defense buffs during combat. So I think that the distant bonus doubler that you can get in this Hall of Forms is just better, because the attack defense form skill is not available in this Hall of Forms yet. So just get attack defense, just get distant bonus doubler in this Hall of Forms. So for the B skill, again, you'll want to get edge scales because for the 10, mainly for the 10 flat DR and the much needed true damage. And then for the C skill, again, you will want to get barricade because you will want to stop foes from warping near you, and it also gets some no debuff. Also gets the no debuff effects to her defense and resistance, which help Legendary Female Alear tank. And at maximum stats, Legendary Female Alear gets a total of about 10 true damage and 20 free flat DR, together with 40% unpierceable DR for this recommended Omnitank build, which is good because she has similar flat DR to the base stats fallen Melee Alear. However, she has very little true damage and she cannot retaliate against most modern foes with about 15 flat DR minimum. So Legendary Female Alear really just needs a good refine, giving more true damage and more flat DR in order for her to actually stand a chance of competing against modern meta units. So for the best Melee Nuke or Omnitank build now, you really need to fodder Rman's arcane weapon to Legendary Female Alear because arcane weapons are not available in this Hall of Forms. So if you want to build the best Legendary Female Alear, you cannot get all of the skills in this Hall of Forms. You need to sacrifice a rearm nail at least in order to get the arcane weapon. And you also need to equip Emblem Erica Ring for the brave attacks, because if you are using the arcane fell arts, it doesn't have brave attacks. And you can also consider giving Legendary Female Alear low echo or no CD echo, depending on whether you want Legendary Female Alear to be a Melee Nuke or an Omnitank. And Rman's arcane weapon gives both true damage and flat DR, which is perfect. So however, Legendary Female Alear would have to give up on her private special Dragon Blast in order to use the arcane weapon and the attune skills. And then we are moving on to Diamant. Diamant has a private weapon as well, which is Fair Fight Blade. It has Slaying, has true damage and flat DR based on 25% of his defense, which is quite high. And it also gets the full piercing effect have no fallout effect, and also the 20 frozen effect on himself and his foes. And it also gives him preempt pulse if he initiates combat and no guard if foe initiates combat. It also gets the 10 HP finish skill healing. So overall, Diamant's private weapon is actually quite good because it gives a lot of true damage and a lot of flat DR. Although it stops him from performing a follow-up attack, it also inhibits foe's ability to do so. And it also gives him preempt pulse or no guard, depending on whether he initiates combat or foe initiates combat. So overall, his private weapon is actually quite good. So I have two builds for Diamant for this Hall of Forms. They are the Melee Nuke build and the Omnitank build. So I recommend getting the Melee Nuke build because the Melee Nuke build allows Diamant to actually perform two roles consecutively, first as a Melee Nuke and then as an Omnitank. Because with the fortification skills, Diamant can first nuke an enemy and then retreat to a space closer to his allies to get their support effects, and then apply the stone terrain near him after he ends his action. And then because of the fortification skills, he gets the distant counter due to the stone terrain, and thus can function as an Omnitank for one enemy phase, which makes him perform two roles consecutively. And Diamant can do this due to his weapon having good true damage and good flat DR that works during both phases. And for this build, you should definitely keep Diamant's private weapon. And then you should definitely again get the reposition gate skill because it is the rarest highest scoring assist skill right now. And for the special, you will want to get Boulder, which is a free cooldown special that boosts damage based on 50% of defense, and it also gets 40% unpierceable DR most of the time if he meets the defense check, which is easy enough because of his high defense. And for the A skill, I recommend you to get the fortification skill to do the two consecutive first nuke and then tank effect. So you can also consider getting Stronghold. So here is the comparison between fortifications and the Stronghold skill. So the fortification skill gives more player phase oriented stat bonuses and also some extra effects like the 10 special flat DR and the distant counter if the unit is on a divine vein, and also some defense or resistance buffs during combat if he initiates combat. But the Stronghold skill works on both phases as it neutralizes panic and neutralizes debuffs to the unit's defense or resistance if at the start of both turns. So fortifications overall is better for a player phase build as its extra effects are only given if the unit initiates combat, and it also gives more effects comparing to the Stronghold skill. But the Stronghold skill can also help Diamant cleanse start of turn debuffs adds to defense or resistance so that his true damage will not be reduced. So you can definitely choose between the two skills, but personally I think that getting the fortification skills so that you can first nuke someone with an enemy and then retreat back and then try and tag enemies for one enemy phase, that build seems more fun to me, so I recommend getting the fortification skill. And on a side note, you may ask why am I not recommending you to get Slide Sturdy Bow or Attack Defense Excel? So Slide Sturdy Blow is not optimal for Diamant because Diamant's private weapon actually inhibits the guaranteed follow-up attack from the Slide Sturdy Blow skill. So if you use the Slide Sturdy Blow skill, you will only get 5 true damage, and you will not get the guaranteed follow-up attack, which wasted the skill's full potential. So if you really want the 5 true damage, then his base A skill Attack Defense Finish 4 is actually just better because it gives 5 true damage and it also gives extra finish type healing. And And as for why I don't recommend attack defense excel, it's mainly because Diamant cannot follow up. Excel skills are good because they give extra flat DR when units initiate combat, so that they can survive an enemy counterattack and kill them with a follow-up attack. However, Diamant will almost never follow up due to his weapon and his speed, and Diamant cannot fully utilize the potential of Excel skills because Diamant's player phase damage output is not affected by the follow-up attacks. It mainly depends on Diamant's first attack or the brave attacks, as Diamant cannot do a follow-up, and the Excel skill will not contribute as much to his player phase damage output when compared to the other fortress skills, which buff up her physical defense. Which buff up Diamant's physical defense and gives him more true damage due to the weapon and the B skill. So for the B skill, you would definitely want to get attack defense spiked wall because it gives true damage based on 50% of his defense, and it also gives 7 flat DR and also some other effects which are good. And the spike wall skill is the best for Diamant because he cannot use the Laguz Friend 4 skill if he uses the Boulder special due to the slaying effect from Diamant's weapon, and Laguz Friend 4 only works if the maximum special cooldown is greater than or equal to 3. Also, the potent finish is not yet available in this Hall of Forms. So for the C skill, you would want to get Brutal Tempest if you want Diamant to function as a melee nuke, because again it gives a lot of movement and it gives a lot of canto. So as a melee nuke, those two tools are both amazing in helping Diamant function as a melee nuke, and they are almost necessary tools in this crazy canto and mobility meta. And for the maximum stats, Diamant can get up to 24 true damage and 29 true damage if you count the Sacred Seal, 5 true damage from the Sacred Seal, and he also gets a total of 22 flat DR together with 40% unpierceable DR from the Boulder special, which is good. However, as Diamant can almost never get a follow attack, he may not be a top tier melee nuke. But you can also always just get the Emblem America ring to Diamant so that his damage output will increase greatly because he would have brave attacks. And the high flat DR Diamant gets from this build makes him look quite promising on paper, as he could function quite well as an Omnitank as well with 22 flat DR. And he may be able to nuke some modern foes, canto back, and Omnitank other remaining foes if we are using the Fortifications Melee Nuke build. So I look forward to his performance. And for the maximized Melee Nuke build, you would definitely want to get the Potent Finish skill from Bright Larce, and you also, because the Potent Finish skill gives 15 true damage and 7 flat DR, and most importantly, a potential potent attack for Diamant. So if you want to build the best Melee Nuke Diamant, then you should definitely try and get the Potent Finish skill. But remember, the Potent Finish skill is not available in this Hall of Forms yet. And also, as Diamant cannot fully make use of Slice 30 Blow, then in order to maximize his true damage, you should actually keep the base attack defense finish 4 skill for its 5 true damage and more healing. And with this build, Diamant gets a total of 39 true damage if counting the 5 true damage from the finished Sacred Seal, and which is actually amazing. 39 true damage is high. It's very high. And he also gets 21 flat DR and 40% unpierceable DR from Boulder, which are also quite good. And with Emblem America Ring, he is destroying most enemies with his high true damage brave attacks. And you can also consider giving low echo from Attuned Arm, as that echo skill has the dual all effect. And then moving on to the Omnitank build. For the Omnitank build, Diamant wants to get his private weapon again and reposition Gate and Boulder again because they are the best assist skills and the best specials for Diamant. And for the A skill, you again want to get the distant bonus doubler for mainly for the distant counter effect. And for the B skill, again you will want to get spiked wall because it's the only B skill that gives some flat DR to Diamant and also gives some true damage to Diamant. And for on a side note, you may ask why am I not recommending Laguz Friend 4? Well, Laguz Friend 4 is not that good for Diamant, mainly because it is not compatible with the free cooldown Boulder special, as Laguz Friend 4 requires a special cooldown of at least 3 after slaying, and Boulder is at only 2 cooldown for Diamant due to slaying. Normally, you would think that changing the special would be an obvious solution, but as the Boulder special's 40% unpierceable DR is just too valuable, you definitely cannot lose it. And because there are no high cooldown specials that give unpierceable DR for infantry units yet, unless you count Ice Wall, but Ice Wall is also not available in this Hall of Forms yet, and it also does not boost damage based on Diamant's defense, but instead it boosts damage based on Diamant's poor resistance. So the Ice Wall skill is just not good for Diamant, and the 40%, so it is not worth sacrificing Boulder's 40% unpierceable DR just for a little more true damage and flat DR from the Laguz Friend 4 skill. Overall, you just want to get the 40% unpierceable DR because it reduces much more damage than a few more flat DR, and it's just too valuable to lose. And so therefore, you would not want to get Laguz Friend 4, mainly because you need to have Boulder. You need to use the Boulder special. And for the C skill, you will want to get Endless Tempest, because mainly for the Doe All effect, and also gives 1 extra movement, which is not that important because you would want to Omnitank, but mainly you want to get this skill for the Doe All effect. And for Diamant's maximum stats, Diamant gets a total of 24 true damage with the solid ground free Sacred Seal because his true damage is based on his defense, so you will want to stack up as much visible defense on Diamant as possible, and he also gets 22 flat DR together with 40% unpierceable DR, which is good. And similar to the Melee Nuke build, to reach this build's maximum potential, remember to equip Emblem Erica Ring on Diamant so that he can attack twice and also trigger the Boulder special on his second attack. And with Emblem Erica Ring, Diamant should be able to tank most foes' first attack and then retaliate back with brave attacks only during the fight. But remember that Emblem Erica Ring only gives brave attacks during the first combat in enemy phase. So maybe Diamant can only kill the first foe that attacks him, but he cannot kill other foes because by then he will only attack once. And this build makes him a solid Omnitank, however he may be weak to enemies with built-in desperation effects, as he will usually not have Hardy Bearing equipped because the Hardy Bearing Sacred Seal will most likely be given to your saviors, and if you equip the Hardy Bearing Sacred Seal to Diamant, you would get a total of 22 true damage and 21 flat DR, which is still quite good. And as a side note, you can already get all of the needed best skills for Diamant to function as an Omnitank from this Hall of Forms, other than the No-See Disrupt Echo skill. And then we have Citrinne. Citrinne has a very unique weapon that has made a resurgence because of the recent new game mode Your Time to Shine, and her private weapon Tome of Luxuries has Slay and gives her special cooldown -2 at the start of turn 1, and also gives herself unit makes a guaranteed follow-up attack at start of turn if she is at HP greater than or equal to 25%. And if her HP is greater than or equal to 25%, she also gives out all her bonus effects to allies within 2 spaces of unit, including staff bonuses, but it does not include movement +1 or pathfinder effects. And so Citrinne can give all of the effects granted in the Your Time to Shine event to allies within 2 spaces of her. So Citrinne is really good in the new game mode. And Citrinne's private weapon also gives her true damage based on 15% of her resistance and gives her Omni +5 in combat. So Citrinne's private weapon is really interesting, just as I said, and she has a very special niche similar to her personal skill Generosity in Fire Emblem Engage that spreads bonus effects on her to her allies within 2 spaces. And her weapon is still usable in the modern meta as it at least has some true damage, but unfortunately she does not have any flat DR in her weapon, so she will be very glassy. And because there aren't many skills that grant OP status effects to the user only, and her niche may not seem too useful in the modern meta, and it's only useful in the new game mode Your Time to Shine. And I think Citrinne's value as a unit may rise if more skills like the recent attack speed Hex Edge from Rman are released for infantry mage units in the future, because that would make the Anathema status into a support status by Citrinne. Like more effects like Anathema, if Citrinne can hand out more effects like Anathema to her allies, then Citrinne's value would just rise a lot. And I have 2 builds for Citrinne. They are the supportive range nuke build and the range tank build. So personally I recommend the supportive range nuke build because the Citrinne does not have enough flat DR to become a good range tank nor an Omnitank. So I think she should just stick to the usual high resistance build that is just spamming debuffs and then just try and stack up as much true damage as possible. And with this build, Citrinne can inflict a lot of debuffs on foes while also getting good resistance-based true damage, making use of her naturally high resistance stat, and she can also give Canter 1 to herself and allies within 2 spaces due to her private weapon and the Havoc skill. But I'm not sure about this because both Citrinne's niche and the Havoc skills Canter 1 occur after start of turn skills trigger, so you may need to check this out. And for the supportive range nuke build, you will want to keep Citrinne's private weapon and get the reposition gate skill like other units. And for her special, you must get Frost Moon because it is the only available rare special that makes use of Citrinne's resistance in this Hall of Forms, as the recent Ice Wall special is not available yet. And you can also get Flare as a special if you are unlucky, but remember that it does not give piercing and it also only boosts damage based on 60% of foes' res. And for Citrinne's A skill, you will want to get Crystalline Water because mainly it neutralizes panic and it neutralizes debuffs to Citrinne's defense and resistance, which really help Citrinne inflict more resistance-based debuffs on the Havoc skill and the pulse-up ploy skill. And it also helps Citrinne stack up more visible res to help her meet the res checks. And it also helps Citrinne nuke more consistently because Citrinne's true damage is actually based on her resistance. And for her B skill, she should definitely get the newest attack res Havoc skill, and this is available in this Hall 4, so you don't need to worry. And the Havoc skill spreads the Sabotage and Schism Skyism effect on foes, and it also gives Canto 1 to herself, and it also gives true damage based on 20% of her resistance, which is all you want from a debuffing skill like this. And for her C skill, Citrinne should definitely get the Pulse Apply skill, because it other than giving Citrinne the ploy, like more debuffs on the foe, she can also pre-charge Frost Moon on the first turn, helping Citrinne use her special Frost Moon on the first attack. And because Citrinne has special cooldown -2 in her weapon on the first turn. And for at maximum stats, Citrinne gets a total of 27 true damage, counting the finished Sacred Seal, and but 0 flat DR. So Citrinne's true damage is quite good, but she has 0 flat DR, and so she in this meta is very bad. Having zero flat DR in this meta is just very dangerous, because you can get killed by almost every modern foe, and she cannot even get unpierceable DR from her special because Ice Wall is not available yet. So she is very, very glassy, and again, she will almost die to almost any melee unit. And therefore, with this build, Citrinne will mainly serve as a support unit that spams debuffs on foes using her high resistance stat, and she also gives guaranteed follow-up attack support and maybe the Canto 1 support, and she can also help clean up some units, but mainly she cannot tank any enemy counterattacks. And then for her ranged tank build, you would want to get all the same skills as the supportive ranged nuke build, but you will want to swap out the B skill for Laguz Friend 4. Laguz Friend 4 gives the much needed flat DR that Citrinne is missing, and it also gives true damage and full piercing when special triggers. And at maximum stats, Citrinne gets a total of 24 true damage and 14 flat DR with the max stats ranged tank build, and her true damage is good, but her flat DR is still a bit below average even at max stats. The average flat DR for any sort of tank is about 22, and they would also have 40% unpierceable DR at least, and Citrinne is missing that, so Citrinne will not function as a good tank, or even of course not a good Omnitank. And you can also consider swapping the A skill for close counter bonus doubler to get the close counter effect, so that Citrinne can function as an Omnitank, but I don't think that she would do as well. She would do well as an Omnitank because her flat DR is just not high enough in this modern meta, and she loses 2 flat DR if she equips the C bonus doubler skill, and she will become susceptible to attack or res debuffs. So Citrinne is actually very glassy with this build, So Citrinne is normally very glassy, but Citrinne will at least get 10 to 12. Citrinne will at least get some flat DR out of this build, but she loses 2 debuff effects and potentially the 2 spaces Canto 1 support, so you can choose between the ranged tank build or just focus on her debuff effects. So for the best Citrinne builds, if you really want to build the best Citrinne possible, then you have to fodder either Bride Julia or Attune Farja for their Ice Wall special to give Citrinne 40% unpierceable DR in the special. And for the supportive nuke build, you should equip the Lin Ring and Attack of Echo to increase her front range and get the 2 spaces order support due to Citrinne's niche. And for the tank build, you should equip Ike Ring to stack up more unpierceable DR, and equip the No CD Echo to ensure that Citrinne can counterattack all ranged foes to ignore the sweep effects. And then finally, we have Halloween Timerra. Halloween Timerra also has a private weapon in Spirited Spear, and her private weapon has Slaying, has some supportive effects, has the guard effect inflicts the guard on foes within 3 rows and 3 columns, and also has the scour effect on those foes if those foes' special cooldown is less than or equal to 1, and have defense less than use. Sorry, wait. Yes, less than or equal to 1 and have defense less than Timerra's defense, then they will get scoured, and Timerra also gets the Omni plus 5 during combat and inflicts Omni minus X on foes during combat, where X equals 15% of her defense. And Inspirited Spirit also gives some true damage, but only when Timerra's special triggers. Her special true damage is high at 40% of her defense, but it only triggers when her special triggers, so she does not get any true damage during her normal attacks. And Timerra also has the 7 HP post combat healing. So Halloween Timerra's weapon gives some support and has good true damage if she triggers her special, and however she has 0 flat DR, and she only gets her true damage when her special triggers. So she heavily relies on activating her special to actually do damage, and she is actually quite glassy. And so I have 2 builds for Halloween Timerra, the Melee Nuke build and the Omnitank build. So if you want to gamble her refine, which I don't know how many years later until she has a refine, but I think that Halloween Timerra's refine will make her into a similar unit as Attuned Timerra, so Halloween Timerra would like to focus more on defense instead of her speed. But right now, Halloween Timerra is completely outclassed by her Attuned version, because Attuned Timerra's private weapon just does so much more, and Attuned Timerra also has a much better private special, Sandstorm. So even if you inherit the best skills available to Halloween Timerra, she will still perform worse than her Attuned version, because so far no inheritable options are better than Attuned Timerra's private weapon and special, if you want Halloween Timerra to function as an Omnitank. So I really hope that Halloween Timerra will get something that makes her unique, but at least as good as Attuned Timerra from her refine, I don't know how many years later. So if you really want to use Halloween Timerra as soon as possible, then you should 100% get the Melee Nuke build instead, because it is near impossible for her to stack up enough flat DR if she is using a 0 flat DR weapon. And in comparison, this Melee Nuke build is much more practical and functional in the modern meta if she has enough stats. And with this build, although Halloween Timerra may not be the best Melee Nuke in the game, she can at least contribute to killing some modern foes. However, if you use the Omnitank build now, she probably just cannot do anything and she will die to all modern units. So first, let's talk about the Omnitank build. For the Omnitank build, you would want to get almost the same skills as Diamant. You would want to get her private weapon, the reposition gate skill, and the boulder skill again for the 40% unpierceable DR, and for the A skill again you want D bonus doubler for the distant counter effect, the AD spiked wall for the 7 flat DR and true damage, and finally for the C skill you should get Time Pulse Edge, because Timerra's true damage only exists when Halloween Timerra triggers her special, so she needs to proc her special as many times as possible, and because Halloween Timerra does not have any preempt pulse effects in her weapon, then you should definitely use the Time Pulse Edge skill to help Timerra loop her special more easily and trigger her special more often. And at maximum stats, Halloween Timerra gets a total of 9 true damage on her normal attacks and 34 when her special triggers. And however, Halloween Timerra only gets 7 flat DR with 40% unpierceable DR with this Omnitank build, and her true damage and flat DR are both terrible at normal circumstances, and she would most likely only do some damage if she triggers her boulder special. So I do not recommend spending a formal soul on this unit unless she is your absolute favorite unit, because even with investment, her performance is just really not good enough for it to be worth it if you want Halloween Timerra to work as an Omnitank. And I really hope that she gets a good refine in the far away future. However, if you're going for the Melee Nuke build for Halloween Timerra, then you should get the special Gus, or you can just keep Boulder. They are very similar, but if you are investing into Halloween Timerra speed, then you should get the Gus special because it boosts damage based on speed instead of defense. But the Gus and Boulder special both have 40% unpierceable DR, so you can choose between the two, and I think you can just choose the one you like. And for the A skill, you can get Slide Swift Sparrow or Attack Speed Excel again for the true damage, 5 true damage, or if you want the 12 flat DR when Halloween Timerra initiates combat. And for the B skill, you should definitely get Speed Taker 4 if you're going for the Melee Nuke build, because Speed Taker 4 gives Timerra some much needed true damage, and it also gives her some more extra speed and also the no guard and no speed debuffs effects. And you will want to get Speed Taker 4 instead of Spiked Wall, because the Speed Taker 4 skill gives more true damage. And for the C slot, then you should definitely get Brutal Tempest if you are going for a Melee Nuke build, because the Brutal Tempest again gives movement +1, which is very good, and it also gives Canto distance +1, maximum of 4, which is a lot of Canto. So it really helps Halloween Timerra function as a good Melee Nuke in this crazy Canto and mobility meta. And so at maximum stats, Halloween Timerra gets a total of 21 true damage during normal attacks and 44 true damage when her special triggers, if you are counting the finish seal as well. And however, remember that Halloween Timerra has 0 flat DR, and she only has 40% unpierceable DR from Gus. So in terms of performance, Halloween Timerra works better as a Melee Nuke now until she gets a refine. And as you can see, she has very good true damage, but remember that she has 0 flat DR, and if she gets counterattacked by hardy bearing enemies, then she is most likely going to be defeated. And for the best builds for Halloween Timerra, you should definitely focus on the Melee Nuke build on the left, as the Omnitank build is really just impractical until Halloween Timerra gets a refine, giving her tons of flat DR, making her similar to Untitled Chapter, because right now Halloween Timerra can only stack up only 7 flat DR maximum, so it's just not good, and she really just cannot work as an Omnitank. So to maximize her nuking potential, Potent Finish is a must-get skill to get slightly more true damage, and more importantly, the potent attack. So if you get the Potent Finish skill at maximum stats, Halloween Timerra will get a total of 25 true damage on normal attacks and 48 true damage during specials, including the Sacred Seal. So this amount of true damage is actually very good. So Halloween Timerra as a Melee Nuke with a lot of investment is actually functional, and it's actually pretty good. So if you really want to use Halloween Timerra, then you should definitely go for the Melee Nuke build instead of the Omnitank build. So finally, you should also equip the Erica Ring for brave attacks and the Time Pulse Echo skill to help her trigger Gus more easily for her high special based true damage. And last but not least, here is a recap on the recommended builds for each unit to grab from this Hall of Forms. And thanks for watching, and subscribe to see more videos like this.